This is the front bench. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for keeping it UBC TV. Once again, I am Jethro Kasaiji. Government legislative agenda and the role of the government chief whip is our topic tonight. Allow me also inform you that we are coming to you live on our different 11 radio stations. We are coming to you live also on YouTube, but also on our X handle. So please be part of the show using that hashtag UBC Front Bench. Honorable Government Chief Whip, thank you so much for sparing time. This is the second time I am hosting you. The last time we did have an interface, you did clearly state the role of the Government Chief Whip in ensuring that business in Parliament is actually runs on efficiently, very smooth, in a very right manner. But now tonight we shall be understanding a lot more when it comes to the government legislative agenda and how it is generated. Honorable.
First and foremost, when we talk about government legislative agenda, we refer to the set of business or businesses that government, through ministries, departments, and agencies, introduce on the floor of Parliament for consideration by Parliament. The legislative agenda of government is arrived at every year. We call it a session in Parliament because a Parliament sits for 5 years. There is session 1 or the first session, second, third, fourth. Like for the 11th Parliament, we are now in the 5th session. So every year, the office of the Prime Minister, which is established under Article 108A of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, is charged with 2 constitutional responsibilities primarily. 1, to be the leader of government business in Parliament, but 2, to also be in charge of coordinating the implementation of policies of government through ministries, departments, and agencies. So in a nutshell, whatever responsibility that is charged under the office of the Government Chief Whip, that office is like an operational office under the office of the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister leads government business in Parliament constitutionally, so that is the legislative role of the Prime Minister, literally. Then, on the side of the executive, the Prime Minister is meant to coordinate. So the office of the Government Chief Whip falls under that of the Prime Minister. Now, in each and every session, the Prime Minister, while executing his or her role of being the leader of government business in Parliament, writes to all ministries, departments, and agencies of government to submit their legislative agenda. Legislative agenda is primarily bills that each ministry, department, or agency of government is intending to introduce on the floor of Parliament. When we sat in cabinet for this term, we agreed that it is not going to be business as usual, it will be business unusual. In the past, ministries would even submit like bills whose principles are not yet considered by cabinet. But we agreed at the start of this term that bills whose principles are approved by Parliament should be the only one that should be responded to in the communication of the Prime Minister. Now, when the Prime Minister does that, the office of the leader of government business, which is also in Parliament, and that one, the operational officer in charge of monitoring day to day, is the Government Chief Whip, is charged with the responsibility of receiving the responses in terms of what Ministry of Education intends to bring, the bills that will come from Ministry of Gender, bills from Ministry of Tourism, to mention but a few. So we do the compilation. Now, you know that under Article 101, it's 101 when the President addresses the nation, State of Nation, is Article 101. Each and every session, for instance, in the month of May or June, the President will open the first session of the 12th Parliament. In doing that, in his or her speech, the President highlights in the tail end of the speech, the legislative agenda of government to be considered by that particular parliament. So really, in a nutshell, that is how we work. This office does not work in isolation. In fact, the office of the government chief whip falls under office of the prime minister, also falls under parliament. But it plays its roles in three fronts. There is the executive role, because by virtue of the appointment, the government chief whip is a cabinet minister. There is the legislative role, the role he or she plays in parliament. There is also the party role, because by appointment, a government chief whip becomes a party leader in parliament. That is why you chair the NRM parliamentary caucus. So in a nutshell, the office supports the prime minister in executing his or her constitutional mandate of leading government business in parliament. But the office of the government chief whip itself is established under four legal instruments. One is the Administration of Parliaments Act. Two is the Rules of Procedure of Parliament. Three is the Constitution of the National Resistance Movement. And four is the Rules of Procedure of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus. So in a nutshell, I can say without any fear of contradiction that the office of the government chief whip under office of the prime minister is the political center of gravity. The role it plays is the role of a midfielder in any game. So when you look at midfielders in Uganda Cranes, midfielders in Manchester United, in Arsenal, that is the role played by the government chief whip. I report to NRM party directly. I report to the president, to the vice president, to the prime minister. I report to the speaker, to the deputy speaker, the leadership of parliament. So you are in the middle. You are the political engine of government. You are the operational officer who must make things move. So we work hand in hand in supporting the Right Honorable Prime Minister in delivering the legislative agenda of government.
Honorable, after understanding that you are the Bruno Fernandes of the team, looking at the demand of Ugandans, you did talk about the bills. At what point do you put in consideration what bill comes first before it is signed to become a law, right? It is a bill first, then when it is signed by the president, it becomes a law. At what point, and how do you gauge all that? How do you measure, putting in mind that Ugandans want some of these things activated? Yesterday we did a story on Women's Day. A lady said the sexual offences bill has not yet been signed, and they feel it must be worked on as soon as possible. So how do you put all those into consideration to ensure that Ugandans get the right service?
Let me start with that example of the sexual offences bill. You know, by the time a bill comes to be introduced on the floor of Parliament for first reading, there has been a number of considerations behind the curtain. Now, that particular one has still some I would say, complicated provisions. For instance, the issue of marital rape. I think consensus has not yet been generated. But all in all, each and every bill introduced by government is important or carries its own weight. By the time government says, in this session of Parliament, we shall introduce the following bills, all those bills are important. All those bills, research has been done. All those bills probably have policies. Some of them we are now operationalizing the policies by enacting the respective laws. So each and every bill introduced by government in a particular session, remember a session is only 1 year. Government is saying in the 5th session, we are introducing the following bills. And they are normally clustered under ministries. They are normally clustered under ministries. Now, when they are presented on the floor of Parliament, what now determines, because under the rules of procedure, a parliamentary committee is charged with the responsibility of consulting stakeholders within 45 days. Now, if 5 bills are presented today, One is referred to the Committee on Education, the other one is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, the other one is referred to the Committee on Trade. All the three committees have within 45 days to work on the bill. Now, if your committee takes 2 days to consult with stakeholders and presents a report in the 5th day, that means that bill automatically will carry the order of precedence as number 1. If his takes about 30 days, automatically that will also come. If mine takes 45 days, then I come back to Parliament to say, I have not yet consulted all the stakeholders. Those are now the sequencing that may affect each and every bill. But every bill presented by government in each and every session has its own weight, has its own importance, and must be handled as urgent, as soon as possible, but within the rules of procedure of Parliament, because the moment a bill is introduced by government, it is referred to a committee. A committee is given 45 days. Within the 45 days, the committee is expected, it is mandatory that a committee must interact with stakeholders on the bill, because by the time you report back for second reading and reading the report, then the debate ensues, then later on the third reading, you must have evidence to the effect that you have consulted with the line stakeholders in as far as that particular bill is concerned.
Legal officer, Mr. Alfred Feta, what is the legal process like for that the government bill has to go through before it is tabled in Parliament? Because now Ugandans are looking at the fact that the Honorable has talked about the procedure, the 45 days. Yes. So now a Ugandan clearly understands that, okay, so it is a committee that is delaying a particular bill, or so, that is if they are still doing further consultations.
Thank you. The process through which a bill comes to Parliament, first of all, starts with the relevant ministry developing what we call principles. And those principles normally spell out what the bill is going to be about and the scope of the bill. Now, we all know that laws emanate from policy. So the relevant ministry is directed to go and prepare principles of a bill in line with the policy that the government wants to be buttressed, okay? Now, when the ministry goes and prepares these principles, the principles are forwarded to cabinet. When cabinet receives these principles, it looks through them, and then they take a position. When they agree on the principles of that bill, the bill is then sent back to the ministry with instructions to go and draft provisions of that bill, but within the scope of those principles that have been approved by the cabinet. Now, in the process of drafting this bill, of course, Ministry of Justice comes in here handy, and when Ministry of Justice drafts this bill, they also engage, the line ministry engages the relevant stakeholders on what should be included in that bill. Now, when the drafting is done, this draft bill is then again submitted to cabinet. Now, why it is submitted to cabinet is to ensure that the instructions that cabinet gave to the line ministry are actually what is contained in the draft proposals of the bill. And when cabinet approves the text of that bill and has ensured that it is in conformity with what cabinet had decided, then the ministry is given leeway to now go and gazette. They go and gazette this bill, and that is where you bring in the Uganda Gazette. It appears in the Gazette, and once it has been gazetted, it again comes back to the line ministry, which now then seeks cabinet approval for this bill to be presented to the House for first reading. And then, of course, when it has gone for first reading in Parliament, then the other processes continue. You know, it goes through the committee stage, it comes back for second reading, then the third reading, and when it is approved at that stage, it becomes an act of Parliament, awaiting assent of the President.
How do you ensure that all these proposed government bills are actually within the Constitution and the existing laws? Because there are issues that we have seen, because I do understand that the committee is comprised of members of Parliament, yes. Some of them, right?
Yes, yes.
But Ugandans out there sometimes say they are not consulted. But the Honorable Government Chief Whip says they are given 45 days to go and consult. But do you think the consultation, do they get to that last person? Because there is also a feeling that these laws or bills sometimes are brought to benefit a certain group of people.
Well, I would not want to take that line of yours, because I have already mentioned, first of all, that when a line ministry is given instructions to go and draft a bill, there is stakeholder consultation at that stage. That even when the bill has not yet come to Parliament, the stakeholders, okay, are consulted at that stage of drafting the bill. Now, not only that, when a bill goes to Parliament and it has gone to the relevant committee of the House, the committees of the House normally invite members of the public to have some input in the preparation of these bills. Now, when the members of the public are invited to make input in the processing of these bills, those views of the members of the public are actually captured in the reports. And therefore, I would not want to believe that stakeholder engagement is lacking. It is definitely there. Maybe we could say the time given to engage these stakeholders could be limited, but I want to believe that enough stakeholder engagement is really done. Talking
about the complying with the Constitution and the existing laws, for how long will amendments be done? I don't want to take it political, but these are things that are said by Ugandans anyway, that amendments are being done, but sometimes even removing what would have been better. Remember, you're holding an office and thinking for the 45 million plus Ugandans. Every Ugandan is looking at your office as a legal officer. Whatever you decide affects almost everybody, including you.
So, you know, as the office of the Prime Minister, our cardinal mandate is always to coordinate implementation of government policies and programs across all MDAs. Now, when it comes to the issue of dealing with aligning of specific legislations to the provisions of the Constitution, normally the Office of the Prime Minister, in its mandate of leading government business in Parliament, we normally scrutinize these things together with the Office of the Attorney General. And the Attorney General normally provides adequate legal advice in as far as constitutionality of certain provisions of bills are concerned. And I think he has been doing a very good job. I don't in any way think we are legislating for a specific group of individuals or something, but we are legislating for the good of the country.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Honorable, before I go to part of the critical government business legislation that you have worked on in the 11th Parliament, right? You did talk about coordination. How is the process like? We do have policies. Actually, if you asked every Ugandan, they will tell you we do have the laws. We do have the policies. But implementation, this is under your office or office of the Prime Minister where you fall.
I want to agree with you that Uganda has been credited and given distinctions in having the best laws. Much as the people of Uganda may not see, but there are many countries within EAC, within the continent of Africa, that keep coming to learn from our best practices. Now, the moment the president assents to a particular law, Parliament would have already exercised its constitutional mandate, because our mandate is to make laws. And when we make laws, they become acts of Parliament when President assents to them. Now, in terms of implementation, that now goes to the respective sectors and departments of government, because you are talking about, for instance, the UPDF Act. The implementation is by the institution called the Uganda People's Defense Forces. You are talking about an amendment probably to the Penal Code Act that now goes under the Justice, Law and Order sector, the Office of DPP and Police.
So who does the follow-up? Actually, now that is the question. After understanding that it is an institution, UPDF or the DPP's office now, but these are policies that you did pass. So who does the follow-up now?
That is probably where we could be having a weak link, because as I told you, the constitutional role of the Prime Minister are basically 2 or 3, but primarily 2. Coordination, it talks about coordinating the implementation of government policies. That still implies if there are challenges in as far as implementing a particular law is concerned, the Prime Minister still has a stake, because the constitutional provision is to the effect that you are the coordinator in terms of implementation of government policies. So that could still fall under the literal interpretation of that constitutional provision under Article 108. But each and every institution of government, each and every department of government is equally duty bound to ensure that whatever law is expected to be implemented under your charge as an institution, as a department, you should do your part. So if there are those that are not doing their part, then a wake-up call can be made to them. But we have also seen, you know, we keep on crying. When you go to prisons, that is when you will know that even if Ugandans are crying about laws not being implemented, all prisons are full, literally full. Luzira here is full. Go to any other prison, be it a local prison, it is full. Implying that, why are people going to prison? That means the courts of law, the DPP, the police are implementing laws, especially criminal-related laws. That is why our prisons are full. Even laws that end up into civil cases are being implemented. But you know, the population of Uganda has really skyrocketed to an extent that you may not feel whatever is being done in the country. But all prisons in Uganda are full by people who have gone through the due process of laws passed by Parliament, assented to by the President, and implemented by the respective institution. That is for a fact. And they are full beyond the capacity they were constructed to accommodate. All of them. In fact, now, there is the prerogative of mercy. where at times the president exercising that constitutional
Amnesty.
mandate will release some prisoners. It is also part of decongesting. The day you are going to host here people from Uganda prisons, they will tell you how prisons are congested. Now, if prisons are congested, that is a clear manifestation of the fact that the laws passed by Parliament, assented to by the President, is being implemented. Some may have challenges, but the laws are being implemented. That is an example. For instance, the Penal Code Act, who would say it is not being implemented? Those who have killed are in prison.
There.
Those who have stolen are in prison. Those who have murdered are in prison.
Those who are ignorant about the law?
Those who are ignorant about the law, ignorance of the law is no defense. You end up in prison. By the time you end up in prison, you end up in prison under implementation of a law passed by Parliament and being implemented by that line institution.
Honorable, allow me go for a short commercial break. When you do return, you will get back with the critical business that you have actually legislated on in the 11th Parliament. Don't go away.
This is the Front Bench.
Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala.
We have to change the political culture in this country, really. Who has bewitched Ugandans?
I want to assure you, as government, we shall do whatever it takes to ensure that Ugandans are safe.
We have conversations that have analysis, explanation.
This law society, this union of theirs, because they want a job everywhere, they want to be this, they want to be that, they want... No. We know it's a union.
You cannot be making a road, bitumen grade 1, in Congo for 5 billion.
But not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth.
The argument that the General Court Martial is responsible for peace and stability is without basis, either in law or in fact.
We have been told how Napoleon was a great orator. Now, Napoleon cannot help me get food. They told me combine harvesters in Saskatchewan. I don't know where Saskatchewan is. This is a geography we're taught. Instead of teaching me how to preserve Mabera forest, they're teaching me about Rhineland. This is a problem we got. We cannot run away from it.
Right now, you hear very disgusting stories of members of parliament. Instead of discussing the details of loans, they ask for their cuts.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
My question is, what is the difference between rental tax and income tax? How comes I'm paying both taxes on my own premises? If you want to have a tin, but you are not making any income from your business, you should take on the obligation to continue filing your nil return.
Commissioner General, to invest in taxation. When people understand taxes and they know the importance of taxes and they know the fair assessment of these taxes they're supposed to pay, I think everybody will embrace taxation.
As banning groupage cargo, clearance protects small traders who cannot afford to import full container loads individually and rely on consolidation to remain competitive. Cargo to come in groupage is consolidation, it's legitimate, and we can't ban it. What we have banned, or what we have stopped, is the use of container leaders. Now, Fiona, the good news I have for you is that among the new tax proposals,
Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887, and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Booza Commissioner.
This is the Front Bench.
This is the Front Bench. Thank you so much for keeping it UBC. While we went for the break, the government chief whip was talking about some bit of the coordination in the given ministries, and follow-up partially has to be done by the office of the Prime Minister, but those ministries that actually propose the bills, and once they are passed into law, they do follow under those particular ministries. But the legal officer wanted to supplement something before.
I wanted to supplement on something to do with the implementation of laws. You said laws are passed by Parliament, but
Yes.
then implementation on the ground is weak.
Somehow, somewhere.
Yes, so I think the missing link there is the fact that we pass laws and we fail to do what we call post-legislative scrutiny. In other words, you go out there to find out how is this law being implemented, okay? Where are we scoring well? Where are we having shortcomings?
Who does that, your office?
How can we be able to address those shortcomings? I think that will go a long way in helping implementation of laws to the dot if we do thorough post-legislative scrutiny.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Honorable, back to you about the critical government business that you have legislated on during the 11th Parliament.
I can, before going into the specifics, because the list is long, first give a summary of bills introduced and passed by Parliament. In fact, the 11th Parliament has gone on record as the Parliament in the recent past that has passed the highest number of government bills. In the first session, that was May 2021 to June 2022, we passed 25 bills into law. In the second session, that is June 2022 to June 2023, Parliament passed 27 bills into law. In the third session, that is June 2023 to June 2024, there were 58 bills passed into law. In fact, the third session goes on record as the session that has passed the highest number of bills within a session. This is within 1 year, the highest number of bills in the last, I would say, 15 years, the third session of Parliament. But majority of these bills were bills falling under rationalization, In the fourth session, there were 44. Then the fifth session, this one we are concluding. At the start, there were 3. And you also know that the period June 2025 to now June 2026 was more or less an electioneering year, where political parties were involved into their internal elections of the party structure, the primaries within political parties. Then we went into the general elections. Now, there are bills still pending with committees. I have just written to committees, especially those chaired by NRM members, to ensure that within this remaining period of the 11th Parliament, those bills are introduced back on the floor of Parliament for second reading, such that we can discharge our responsibility. But the bills I can remember that were a bit controversial. Of course, you know, everything in Uganda, whether good or bad, they are normally sentiments. Like under rationalization, you remember that the coffee bill, for instance, was very, very controversial. But thanks to God that even after rationalizing the Coffee Development Authority, the world prices of coffee is going higher and higher. That was one of the fears of the unknown. In fact, most of our sentiments as Ugandans are normally anchored on fears of the unknown. We came to the UPDF amendment bill. That was another very controversial. Oh, civilians will be tried in the military court. But that was for the good of the country. I remember the following day after passing, a radio station in Lango called me, and I explained to the people, using relevant examples of people killed in Lango, especially Lira, by people riding a motorcycle, like with a gun, like there was a lady. After closing her business of the day, she jumped on the border going back home. Just at her gate, 3 people came on a motorcycle. One holding a gun, shot her so many times, she died. They removed the money all from the proceeds of the sale. They took off. Now, when you tell people, such a person, first of all, who has acquired a gun, which is a preserve of the armed forces illegally, he goes ahead to kill, he goes ahead to rob, and you have the UPDF Act. Wouldn't such a person be taken before the court-martial? Because you voluntarily acquired a gun, not under the laws of Uganda, because you are illegally, or you illegally acquired it. Where would such a person be taken? There was another lady killed in Lira, a pork seller, at a place called Boroboro. 2 people also on a motorcycle went and just gunned down the young lady. First of all, you have an illegal gun. Secondly, you have killed. Where would such a culprit be taken to? In Aleptong, a soldier under 3rd Division came back home with a gun and shot dead 4 people. 4 people were buried together. Good enough, the UPDF tried him in Aleptong. He was sentenced and convicted to give confidence. Now, the UPDF Act is now a law. How many civilians have been arrested just like that, the way Ugandans were talking? Not at all. Ugandans must have confidence in the parliament. When we pass laws in the best interest of the people of Uganda. Now we have the UPDF Act in place. It is only meant to protect you, the civilians, from these unscrupulous Ugandans who go ahead to get illegal guns or to wear military fatigue, designated. And we talked about it, designated. Look at the Karamojong cattle rustlers. A Karamojong cattle rustler acquires guns, be it from a neighboring country. All the way from their place of abode, they come to Acholi or Lango. They end up raping your mother, your sister, your wife. To a certain extent, they can kill. To a certain extent, they go away with your cows. If such a Karamojong cattle rustler with an illegal gun goes ahead to rape, goes ahead to kill, goes ahead to steal cows, where would he or she be tried? In the normal courts or in the UPDF court? We agreed that should go to the UPDF court. Those were examples I gave, and the people of Lango understood the UPDF amendment bill very, very well. But whereas in the countryside, it was highly emotive, very, very sentimental. I think those are the ones I can remember. The UNRWA, the UNRWA bill under rationalization, the NITA-U under rationalization. So all those are part of the 100+ bills passed by Parliament in the last 4 now coming to 5 years. In fact, in a nutshell, there are 19 bills now remaining, some withdrawn, some pending, but 157 were presented. Now, when you do that minus 19, you can get the grand total of bills so far passed by Parliament in the 5 years. That is why I've said the 11th Parliament has gone on record as a Parliament that has passed the highest number of bills in the recent record, and majority of these bills are government bills. So permit me to thank the leadership of Parliament, permit me to thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister, permit me to thank Cabinet that took a decision that only bills whose principles have been approved should be the ones to be introduced in Parliament. And that meeting was chaired by the President himself. And that is how far we have come. That is why we are talking about these success stories in terms of the number of bills passed by the 11th Parliament and government bills.
Well, Honorable, I will not go deep into the critical, controversial bills you did mention, because it will be enlarging the entire discussion. But talking about the performance of the 11th Parliament, how do you rate it? Is passing all these bills, is it also into consideration, rating the performance of the 11th Parliament?
In rating the performance of any parliament under the Commonwealth, you look at about 3 or 4 areas. Legislation, which is primarily their role. Appropriation, this is budgeting. Oversight and representation. But representation, you know, I am a member of parliament. I will be rated by my constituency. We used to have the African Leadership Institute rating performance of members of parliament, but I think that also died a natural death. Now, representation, your judges are your constituents. Oversight is now going to see what the money you have passed has been able to do. So majorly, Parliament remains with the responsibility of legislation. Now, when we talk about legislation, the passing of bills into laws is the core, So when you are looking at the performance of any parliament under the Commonwealth, because this is the primary role of Parliament. 2 is the question of budget. For instance, we were on recess. Parliament is returning on Thursday. And what we are handling on Thursday is laying of the ministerial policy statements, part of the budget process for the next financial year. Now, the moment they are laid, they are referred to the appropriate committees for consideration. So when you talk about how do we gauge the performance of this parliament, I've told you 157 in total, 19 bills are pending, some of them are withdrawn. There are 1,194 questions answered by the Prime Minister during the Prime Minister's question time.
1,094.
1,194 questions answered by the Prime Minister. Because, you know, we use the Commonwealth practice. There is always a Prime Minister's question time where members interact with the Prime Minister on the floor. There are a number of ministerial statements presented by ministers. There are a number of motions presented by government. You remember the motion of supporting our brothers and sisters in South Sudan, the deployment of the UPDF? Those are motions that are sponsored by government. But whereas we are talking about government bills, we should also be cognizant of the fact that under Article 94 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, as amended, a private member has the right to move or present a private member's bill. And the Constitution is very instructive and descriptive on what is expected of that private member. But all we are talking about are government-related bills, motions, and statements. We are not even on the private member's bill. The one I am giving statistics on are purely government.
Okay, Senior Alfred, let's talk about the legal challenges that you face as an office when you are implementing some of these national policies and programs.
In implementing some of these national policies and programs, first of all, you will have problems of mindset change. Sometimes you have a very good program to take to the people out there, but then because their minds are not prepared to receive these programs in the proper way, we have this program of PDM that is going on, and government thought it right that in order to have effective implementation of this program, they needed to go there and change people's mindsets on how to approach some of these things. Because it is one thing to give somebody money. People are being given 1 million shillings to go and start up some income generating projects. But then somebody might, when somebody is not in the right mindset, okay, he'll think this money has just been given as some kind of appreciation for supporting government and so on and so forth. So mindset issues are a very big obstacle in implementing many of these government
national policy
government programs and policies. And another one could be, you know, we are always faced with also fiscal challenges, most especially when most of this money is being provided by the government of Uganda. There are those budgetary constraints. Sometimes when the government is preparing for the next financial year, you will find that there are some budgetary cuts that are made here and there, and some of them affect implementation of some of these government programs and policies. Yes.
About agreements and contracts, how do you ensure transparency and accountability?
Transparency in preparation of contracts
and agreements.
You know, contracts are normally the preserve of the office of the Attorney General, because under the Constitution we very well know that the primary mandate of the office of the Attorney General is to be the legal advisor, the chief legal advisor of government, and when they are executing that role, they engage in drafting of contracts and agreement. In fact, there is no ministry or department or agency of government that can engage in execution of a contract or an agreement without having the input of the office of the Attorney General. So it is very important that they always do that in order to ensure that all these things align so well with, first of all, they align with the Constitution, and they align with the laws of the laws of the land.
Is there a point you've made a few legal errors coming to decisions made by the government? Because the wananchi sometimes they do come out and say, but here there is a mistake that the government has done, but it is legal. Well, I do understand you're human beings anyway.
Yeah, you know, sometimes when government officials are executing their work, sometimes these errors are made, but they are made in utmost good faith. You know, we are all humans. We are at one point in time. So, but I don't think these contracts are normally. I don't think they are executed in such a way as to, you know, benefit a few individuals or to defraud government in one way or another. So these mistakes normally occur. It might be oversight, but you know, they are always done in good faith.
As we close on your side, before I get back to the government chief whip, how do you ensure that citizens' rights are actually protected? Because now that is another key factor. So that when you're in your office there, you don't think about simply passing a bill or signing a bill to become into law, but to ensure that the last wananchi, because remember, today you are in that office, tomorrow you will be also somewhere else when someone else is in that office.
Well, like I had mentioned before, to ensure citizen rights, you know, it is good to have legislation that has input of the citizens, because we don't legislate for ourselves in government. We legislate for the well-being and good governance of the Ugandans out there. Actually, Article 70, is it Article 70, the one that relates to the legislature, specifies one of the functions of Parliament as to legislate for the good governance and well-being of Ugandans. So I think one of the ways in which we can be able to protect the rights of Ugandans is by engaging them in in the formulation of these laws and policies, so that we listen to what the citizens have to say and put them into the laws that we are presenting to Parliament. And in that way, we are able to protect their interests. So,
okay. Honorable, coordinating government business in Parliament, ensuring party discipline, mobilizing MPs, linking Parliament and the executive, managing legislative timetable, those are some of your responsibilities as the government chief whip. Combine all those as we wrap up to assure the nation that you have done your job as the government chief whip in this 11th Parliament.
I want to thank you and really thank all my supervisors, because in all this, I don't work in isolation. I don't work in isolation. You could have seen those who have served as Right Honorable Taibwa was the government chief whip. He's my age mate, but you have seen the gray hair on his beard and on his head. You have also seen mine. That tells you the magnitude of work in that office. But all said and done, you don't work alone. As I told you, my immediate supervisor is the Right Honorable Prime Minister. Each and everything the operational office of government chief whip does is what is supposed to be done under the bigger picture by the Prime Minister. It's like the chain of command, like in the military. You will have a brigade commander, a division commander, but each has his or her role. Now, in doing all that I do, I can't give credit to myself. Let me thank the regional whips, because in ensuring attendance of members, my office is facilitated by regional whips of all the sub-regions you have. West Nile, Lango, Acholi, Teso, they all have regional whips under the office of the government chief whip. Two, we also have staff that are placed in different committees. Those staff also help us in ensuring that members are mobilized as and when we need them. We mobilize them to come and attend plenary. We mobilize them to come and attend the NRM parliamentary caucus. If there is a business that requires the NRM as a party to first caucus and generate consensus, we normally mobilize using those technical staff. And many others. We make calls to members of parliament. We call them. We have social media platforms that we use, like WhatsApp. We normally send messages. There is a group, for instance, under office of the government chief whip. So we normally post. So in a nutshell, in executing the statutory role of the government chief whip under the supervision of the Prime Minister, we have done it to the best of our ability. The only thing is that the government chief whip does not have the mechanism of enforcement. I can't come to drag you as a member of parliament from the street of Kampala when parliament is sitting to say, please, the house is sitting. But at least we are courteous enough to reach out to you through a call. We are courteous enough to reach out to you through our WhatsApp group for you to be informed that on such and such a day, Parliament will sit to consider the following. The caucus of NRM will sit to consider the following. Your particular committee will sit to meet stakeholders on the bill referred to your committee. That is the role of the staff. As I speak, even today, the staff in the office of the government chief whip are already reaching out to members of parliament, because under the rules of procedure, ensuring attendance is the statutory role of the government chief whip to ensure attendance of members, especially of the ruling party, their participation and voting. The staff are already working. For me, I'm just from cabinet, but my staff have been working. The regional whips have been working. We shall meet either tomorrow or on Wednesday to go through the list of members of parliament we have so far reached for the sitting of Thursday. But let me also put a disclaimer that we have just returned from an election. There are those who have gone through, there are those who have not gone through. The morale may be high, the morale may be low, that may affect attendance. But in terms of doing our part, we have done it to the best of our respective abilities.
Thank you so much, the Government Chief Whip, Honorable Dennis Hamson Obua. Thank you so much, Mr. Alfred Feta, Legal Officer, Office of the Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I do understand even if we had 2 hours, it is very hard to exhaust all the other things that we did want to talk about. But next time, when we do have the Chief Whip, he did talk about bills that they have passed. I think the next program, when we do have him, maybe after next Monday, maybe next Monday but one, we shall dive into these bills, because Ugandans have to critically understand a number of those and to see how best they can benefit from all this. From me and the entire technical team, thank you so much for being part of the show. For those who have been listening in online, YouTube, X, and also the 11 radio stations, thank you so much. I am Jethro Kasaiji. Ciao.
Oh, Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future